Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Please put your hand up if you can't. I'm still waiting for a few more people to join. Just adding two of my colleagues as panelists just for administrative purposes. I hope that's okay. One more moment, and then we'll get started. Okay, I'm hoping you can hear me. I'm going to pick on someone to confirm they can hear me. Ross, if you can hear me, could you put your hand up by pressing the raise hand button down at the bottom? Perfect. Okay, right. I know I'm not talking into the void. Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon or this morning. This is going to be, I hope, a brief overview on ECCTA and IDV implementation. It's been a week since the 18th of November, and the Companies House changes that have come into force as of that date. My plan is to just do a very brief recap of what this means, go through some of the things that we've seen in the past week, things that have worked, things that haven't, things that are being fixed, things that we don't know if they're going to be fixed. We'll give a very quick overview of how Kudocs is handling IDV personal codes, filing at Companies House, things like that. And then hopefully have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. If you've got any questions, please do put them in the Q&A tool down the bottom. My preference would be for you, and no one can speak, but I can let you speak. My preference would be not to deal with questions at the end, but if there's anything particularly urgent, you are welcome to put your hand up as we go along, and provided I see it, I'll try and pick it up and let you in, and you maybe have something to contribute to the conversation. But equally, we'll hopefully allow enough time for you to do that at the end. So without any further ado, it's been a week since implementation of the identity verification requirements at Companies House. This is the mandatory requirement. So people have been able to complete IDV for a number of months, but as of the 18th of November, certain filings to Companies House, such as incorporations, confirmation statements, director appointments, PSC notifications, etc., have had to include the personal code and the verification statement, amongst a few other things, as mandatory. So this doesn't mean that every company, as of the 18th of November, has had to rush out and submit filings to Companies House and do any extra compliance. It just means that as and when a relevant filing, an incorporation, confirmation statement, etc., falls due, those filings now include these extra mandatory fields. That all went live kind of big bang-ish, 8 o'clock last Tuesday, and by and large, it seems to have gone okay. Things that we've seen being a software filer that have worked are incorporations. They seem to have gone through without any issues. New director appointments seem to be okay. LLP notifications seem to be okay. Unfortunately, some things that haven't gone well are PSC filings. So we are seeing through the XML or the channel that we and other software systems use to communicate with Companies House. We have seen an issue with all forms of PSC filings, so PSC notifications, PSC updates, and PSC cessations. They are being rejected by Companies House because Companies House is saying that those filings need to have data in a particular format, which is not the correct format. I won't bore you with the detail. Companies House are aware of this and we're hoping to have fixed it today. It doesn't look like it's actually quite worked today as of now, but maybe later on this afternoon it will be resolved. It doesn't make any massive difference. Certainly in Kudocs, customers can still use the platform to add and remove and edit PSCs. It's just that those actual filings to Companies House are being rejected and are sitting in our kind of queue waiting for Companies House to fix their end so that actually we can then file them correctly. The other thing that we have seen is that some, but not all, confirmation statements are being rejected incorrectly by Companies House. They're coming back with an error saying that a confirmation statement includes the name of a director that does not match the name of the director in the Companies House record. So when you submit a confirmation statement with Oliver Stanley and his personal code and identity statement, Companies House comes back and says there is no director called Oliver Stanley. You can't submit the CSO1. And that is not correct. There is a director called Oliver Stanley. And again, we flagged that with Companies House. They've acknowledged that there's an issue, but as of writing, there is no timeline. Well, as of speaking, there's no timeline for when that's going to be fixed. That seems to also be affecting web filing. So you can't submit certain confirmation statements via web filing. I don't know, don't know if anyone else on the call wants to contribute now or later. We have seen confirmation statements go through, so it's not all of them. And I don't know what the trigger is for some of them being rejected, some of them not. The confirmation statement not being fileable is a problem. If you've got a company or your own company has a confirmation statement that has a due date that is now or indeed has passed, it would appear, apart from maybe submitting the filing by paper, that it is impossible to file the confirmation statement at this moment in time. Again, we flagged that with Companies House and asked for clarification, and they've said that, as ever, sanctions for late filings will be at Companies House discretion and depend on the facts. My view is I hope that if companies are unable to file their confirmation statement on time, and that is caused by Companies House not accepting the filing, even though it's a perfectly correct and valid filing, they won't get a fine. And certainly in Kudocs, we'll have lots of records about filings having been tried to be submitted on time. So if any of our customers ever get a fine, then we can give them the evidence to dispute that. The other thing that we've noticed, so that's kind of the functional stuff. The other thing that came live on the 18th, so last Tuesday, is that on the public register, Companies House are now publishing dates either by when or the window. So these PSCs have filing windows, which I can explain in more detail if needs be at the end. The Companies House is producing the dates that will make it possible for you to work out when identity verification filings need to be submitted for certain individuals in certain companies. And that information, as well as being available on the public register, Companies House is also making available through their API. And so we are pulling that data and showing it in Kudocs to make it easy for our customers to see that this particular director or PSC needs to file their code by a certain date. That all sounds great, and for the most part it is. However, we have seen a couple of dates that are wrong. I mean, more than a couple. And hopefully if I can share my screen. I hope you can all see my screen. So can you see this here? Jack or Babita, let me know if you can't. I'm going to assume you can. So if we look at this company here, Stanley Partners Limited, which is a company that we set up as a test account, this company has a confirmation statement due by, excuse me, the 25th of December, 2025. And that means that any of its directors need to file their UID by the 25th of December as part of the confirmation statement. And then PSCs will need to file their codes either if they're also a director within a 14-day window that ends on the 25th of December, or if they're not a director, a 14-day window determined by their birth month. So that's what the rules are, the regulations are. So if you remember, the 25th of December is the confirmation statement due date. But when you then look at the Companies House data and you look at my profile as a director, you see that I've actually, as a director, got a verification due date of the 18th of November, which doesn't make any sense at all. It should be the 25th of December because that's the confirmation statement due date. So don't know where that's come from. We've seen it in lots of other companies, not all of them, but that is manifestly incorrect. So that's one bit of concern. And then the second point is that in this company, I am also a PSC, and I have the same name and the same birth month and birth year. And we are seeing in lots of instances, Companies House successfully being able to connect directors and PSCs and then generate filing windows based on recognizing that you're a PSC and a director, so therefore your filing window is by reference to the confirmation statement date, a due date. And as you'll recall, the confirmation statement due date for this company is the 25th of December. But for me, they have failed to make that connection. And so they're saying that my PSC filing due date is January by reference to my birth month, not the confirmation statement. My wife, who's also director of this company, they have been able to connect. So they're saying that her PSC identity verification date is December, i.e. by reference to the confirmation statement. So all a bit confusing, particularly when you look at the regulations, and the regulations say I should be filing by reference to the December dates. And so the practical problems of this are, one, if you are a company or you're advising your clients and you're getting these confusing dates, what is the right answer? And I'm afraid I don't know that. But the second point, which we haven't yet been able to test, just because of the fact we're only a week in, is that if these dates are wrong, and if I were to try and file my PSC UID or personal code between the 12th and 25th of December, as I am meant to be doing according to the regulations, will Companies House verification reject that? Sorry, not verification, their technical verification. Will they reject it because they're saying, oh no, your window is the 1st to the 14th of January? So I don't know what the answer to that is. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, it'd be more than interesting, it'd be important to see. But that could be a practical problem that, well, it kind of solves the practical problem in as much as we just use the Companies House dates, even though they're wrong. And then we just file according to what those dates are. But legally, I believe that to be incorrect, because if I was to file between the 1st and the 14th of January, as Companies House tells me I should, I'm in breach of regulation. I can't remember what it is now, the number, because I should have filed, like my wife, between the 12th and the 25th of December. So it's really an update, I'm afraid, only at this stage, because we don't have an answer to it. But the issues that we're seeing around PSC and director verifications are that the dates are wrong for some PSCs where they've not been able to map them, and that we're getting incorrect verification dates for some directors. Okay. Now, if I stop sharing and come back. So hopefully that's helpful, not too concerning, but it is concerning. It's been concerning us for a week. We are in constant contact with Companies House about all of these issues. I think they're perhaps understandably, frantically trying to resolve a number of things. So I don't think it's fair to beat them up too much about this. But I hope that we're going to get some updates, and as ever, we'll be updating our website and the application with any news. So if I now go on to just do a quick explanation for those of you who are existing customers, or those of you who aren't but considering to be customers, hopefully this is of interest to you. What's Kudocs doing in a practical sense to enable these, or support these changes and make your lives as easy as possible, notwithstanding all the points that I've just talked about, that it's a bit tricky given some of the data coming from Companies House not being correct. But again, if I share my screen. So I'm now logged into Kudocs, and for those of you who know what I'm talking about, those of you who don't, please get in touch with us afterwards and we'll be delighted to explain more. But this is a dummy portfolio. So this is pretending to be a law firm or an accountant or someone who's providing a company secretarial or entity management service for a number of entities. So in your portfolio view, you've got the list of all the entities that you're looking after. A couple of things to mention. Firstly, we've added a new toggle here so that you can check the IDV or the UID status. So in this imaginary law firm, very smug, you can see that all the entities that we've got here for all the relevant stakeholders, so directors, LLP members, PSCs, or whatever, all the UIDs, all the personal code. Companies House kind of uses two different phrases. We use UID, unique ID. So that's the 11-digit code that Companies House generates when ID verification has been completed. So what this is showing you is that for all of these companies, all of the codes have been provided for all of the relevant individuals. If there were some codes missing, which I can't show you because we've got them all added now, you'd see some red text here saying UID is missing. So at a glance, that makes it easy for you to see across your whole portfolio of customers, and you can sort by this heading who's got codes added, who's got codes missing. Having codes missing isn't necessarily a problem because if the company doesn't need to file a confirmation statement until next November and the PSCs don't need to submit their filings until October or November, then you don't need the codes right now. So it doesn't mean that you have to, panic and sort it out, but it's just an easy way at a glance to see what codes are there and what's missing. Okay, so that's the first thing there. Second thing is the portfolio stakeholder tool. So this allows you to search across all the entities in your portfolio. And so let's say you have a client or you have an individual who's a director of 20 companies and a PSC in 4 and an LLP member in 3. They will have one single UID that applies to all companies. So what this allows you to do is, again, it's a bit tricky because this is our demo account where we've added all of the codes, but you can look for Oliver, let's say Oliver Stanley, you can select all of them here, and now we've got codes in all the spaces, so actually the button is disabled, but if you were missing codes, then you can click Update Unique ID, and then you can enter the code once, and then the system will save that code across all of those roles in all of those companies. So you don't have to go into each company, find each instance of Oliver Stanley or John Smith or whatever, and add their code one by one. Okay, and this tool, you can apply some filters to look for cases where UIDs are required or where UIDs are missing. So there are no Olivers with a missing UID, etc. And you can export reports about the various stakeholders on the criteria or parameters that you've set up here. Okay, and there's a nice overview here of the number of stakeholders, those who need UID, with UID, those without UID. Okay, so actually if I look, and there's a fake name, so Bill John Origin is a director, secretary, and he does not have a UID, so there's no value here, and you can see there's a little red card here to show you that the UID is missing. So actually let's just show, I mean, this is just one individual, but imagine that we tick this box for 10 names, you could type in and put in the code. One quick thing, a Companies House gives you codes with dashes in them, which is unhelpful. So they give you a 13-character code if you include the 2 dashes, but they actually only allow 11 characters to be sent back, particularly unhelpful. Anyway, we've built the system that if you copy and paste the code, including the dashes, then you add them to Kudocs, we'll strip out those dashes. You can see they just disappeared. And so we'll save it to the system with 11 characters with the dashes removed for you. Okay. So that is portfolio stakeholders, the way to see ID information. We also have reports and subscription management. So we have you can also generate a report. There's here the reports, all roles UID report. I won't generate it right now, but this gives you a report of all the stakeholders and whether they've got codes, what the filing deadlines are for those individuals, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to generate a report for all 2, 3, 400,000, whatever, directors, PSCs, et cetera, in your client portfolio, you can use this report. And then it gives you an Excel report and you can sort it and things like that. Okay. Some of you may have seen, as of today's Tuesday, as of yesterday, Monday, you may have seen some emails that come out to your portfolio if you are the portfolio admin. So now every Monday we will send you a report saying that in the next 3 weeks you have got companies who have a UID filing due, whether that's a confirmation statement or a PSC filing. And if in that list of individuals who need to be filed, we detect that there are codes missing, you will see in the body of the email an extra paragraph saying we have detected that of the 300 people that need to be filed, or whatever the number is, 10 are missing codes. And then you can click a button and generate a report, and the system will give you a report of all of those filings that are due, and it will highlight the individuals who are missing the codes. So just another way for you to identify and find where the codes are missing or the UIDs are missing, and this weekly email brings it to your attention more where those codes or the UIDs are missing and the filing is due quite soon. Okay. So that's kind of how to look at and view information at the portfolio level. If I now go into a company, so I've now gone into a company in Kudocs. Again, hopefully a number of you, or a lot of you, most of you will recognize this view. So here we're on the company dashboard. And you will have seen over the last few weeks, this panel has appeared. So this is saying for this particular company, or if it was an LLP, same thing, you're missing UID for 3 of 7 stakeholders. Once you've added all the UIDs, so if we open up another company, just so you can see, so this is a company, it goes green and stops shouting at you once you've added all the codes for all the relevant people. But in the case where you're missing codes, you'll be able to see that you're missing 3 of 7, and then you can click on more information and it will give you the list of all the relevant people and their roles, director, PSC, LLP member, etc. A green card once the code has been added, and a red card once it's missing, and you can just click on the code and type in the number. So that's if you want to just add one code for one person in one company, that's how you can do it there. Okay. This is a fake company. I mean, all the data we've been looking at is by and large fake. So this is where we are pulling in the deadlines from Companies House, but these dates don't make much sense because there is no real live Companies House data to show you. Actually, these deadlines don't make much sense even sometimes when you look at real companies because of this problem. Well, here we go. We've got some information here that's live from Companies House, but it will be pulling through those dates, including some of these errors that we're seeing on the public register. So you can see all your relevant stakeholders, see what they've got, what they're missing, and when their filing windows or filing deadlines are. You can also open up individual stakeholder pages. So let's open up John Wayne's page, just like normal. You can go to the stakeholder page. You can see the Companies House UID field is missing there. As ever, you can click edit. And just like when you edit their name and nationality, address, whatever it might be, you can also put in the Companies House unique ID on the stakeholder page. Okay. One thing that became apparent over the last few weeks or month is that the way the regulations are drafted and the way the Companies House are implementing these changes or have implemented these changes is that directors or LLP members will file their UID as part of the confirmation statement, and the confirmation statement has a deadline which is determined by what the current confirmation statement due date is. There's a bit about what it was as of the 18th of November, but I won't go into that unless anyone wants me to. But basically the point is directors and LLP members file as part of the confirmation statement, and they can basically file at any time up until that confirmation statement due date. So you can file confirmation statements early, but because of the new rules, the way that the Companies House validation is working means that you cannot file a confirmation statement now that does not have all the relevant UIDs. We've built it in Kudocs that if I now go to file confirmation statement here, and there's some new copies warning you about some changes that you might see, but the Kudocs confirmation statement process won't let you proceed until you add the codes. So we're validating it in Kudocs, but even if you were to somehow get past this and file a confirmation statement with missing codes, Companies House will reject that. One thing we've also seen is that confirmation statements that have been filed in the last week with a made up to date before the 18th of November are being rejected, although we don't validate for it, are actually being rejected by Companies House because they're saying that the UIDs are required now. So even if you've got clients who had a confirmation statement that's made up to the 15th, 16th, 17th of November, and you're filing it now, which you're allowed to do, it's still in time. Unless you add those UIDs, Companies House will reject them. And I understand from the people that reported this to me that when they've then gone to try and do it through web filing, the same issue applies. So basically, UIDs are now required for all confirmation statements, irrespective of made up date. Okay. So you've got the directors and LLPs, they file through the confirmation statement. That's nice and easy. In terms of a kind of process, you would come into Kudocs, file the confirmation statement. It's kind of part of the annual confirmation statement filing process. No extra thought is really needed, other than that when you go through it, you'll be prompted to add the codes if they're missing. However, PSCs have these 14-day windows that are by reference to the confirmation statement or by reference to birth month. And if a company files a confirmation statement early, so let's say its confirmation statement is due on the 20th of April next year, and for whatever reason they decide to file a confirmation statement in January next year, which they're allowed to do. That includes all the director, LLP member, whatever codes, nothing wrong with that. In terms of filing the PSC, the UIDs for PSCs who are also directors, You might think, oh, well, I've just filed the confirmation statement, so I've now got a 14-day window to file the PSC director codes. Unfortunately, that's not correct. That deadline, the PSC deadline, has been set in stone by Companies House on the 18th of November. So it's on the 18th of November, it said, subject to all the points we've seen earlier about the dates actually being wrong in some cases, but in theory, it is said, oh, well, as of the 18th of November, this company was going to file its confirmation statement on the, I think I said the 20th of April in my example. So those PSCs have a 14-day window from the 6th to the 20th of April to file their UIDs. Even though the company's filed its confirmation statement early, that PSC window is set in stone. So A, you've got a 14-day window, and B, that window can become disconnected from the confirmation statement if the company files a confirmation statement early. All of this is, fascinating or not, but it's quite stressful. And so what we built in Kudocs to make your lives easier is the option to switch on automatic PSC UID filing. So what this means is that if you switch this on, which you can click on edit here, and you can either switch it on in a company, or at a portfolio level, you go into portfolio settings, edit settings, and you scroll down here to automatic PSC. So this will apply to all your entities in Kudocs. What it means from a practical level is if you have this switched on, then Kudocs will submit those director PSC, well, actually any PSC. So whether it's just a PSC, so it's filing on by reference to birth month, or if you're a director PSC, it will file the UID back to Companies House with the ID verification statement, things like that, provided that the code is in the system and that the window is open and that a code has not already been filed. So you can just, provided you've got the codes in the system, you don't have to worry about any of these dates or windows. Kudocs will just, when the window opens, it will try and file the codes for you. If you're missing a code and the window opens, that's not a problem. If you get to day 10 through the 14-day window, and only then does your client or the client PSC give you the code, put it into Kudocs, it's not a problem. The next day, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, whenever it is that our little process runs, we'll recheck and say, oh, we've now got the code for this person. All of the other rules are met. It hasn't been filed already. The window's open. We've got the code, etc., and it will be filed. So all you have to worry about is getting the codes into Kudocs. And then if you've switched on automatic PSC filing, when those windows open, the system will send them off to Companies House for you. And again, we can't really show it because it hasn't really happened yet, but there will be an audit trail, as there always is in the activity timeline, to show that the PSC UID for John Smith has been sent to Companies House. PSC UID for John Smith has been accepted by Companies House. So you'll have that full audit trail, and for peace of mind that the filings have gone through as requested. So that's the automatic PSC tool. You can set it at a company level, or you can go into your portfolio settings and apply it to all of your companies if you want to. If you apply it to all of your companies, you can then go into certain companies and switch it off. But it's kind of all or nothing to begin with, and then you switch it off. If you then go back into the portfolio and switch it off, it will reset everyone back to 0. So it's kind of opt in, opt out, and then carve out any that for whatever reason you want to keep out of the system and process manually. And in the portfolio activity timeline, as ever, you'll be able to see an audit trail showing that a user has switched it on, switched it off, etc., to make it easy for you to see what's going on there. Okay, so yeah, Oliver Stanley here enabled automatic PSC UID filing for all entities, etc., etc. So that's what we're doing practically in Kudocs to hopefully make your lives easier. We welcome, as ever, all feedback and ideas. So now we've done well, half an hour, and now we've got some questions. And please fill in the Q&A section or raise your hand. If I can see people raising hands, I'm happy to do that. And I will start working through the questions, if that's okay. So one question is, did you say that all PSC filings are being rejected where filed via web filing? We don't use web filing, so I can't speak for that, but I can tell you that as far as we've seen so far in the last week, all PSC filings, so almost all PSC filings that are going through the XML route, so that's the route that software systems like ours use, are being rejected. We have seen some PSC notifications, so like the appointment of a PSC, as it were. Some of them have gone through, but some of them haven't. So we're kind of treating all PSC filings currently as being on pause. So yeah, we'll keep you updated on that. We thought it was fixed this morning because we were able to resubmit a whole load of filings, and then they all got rejected about 10 minutes ago. Well, not 10 minutes, about 45 minutes ago, but for a completely new, different reason, all related. So there was a full storm there. I have another question here, a long one about PSCs. So I'll come back to that in a second. So personal codes are not necessary for filing accounts. No, they're not currently. As far as I'm aware, personal codes are not necessary for accounts. That probably is going to change, I think, in the next year or so. But no, they're not required. I do not believe. We got a question about the ID verification process. So Kudocs does not offer ID verification for individuals, I'm afraid. We're an ACSP, so an authorized corporate service provider, which is one of the conditions to provide that ID verification service. But for a variety of reasons, we're not actually providing that physical or quasi-physical service of ID checking, passports, things like that. There are suppliers and customers of ours that we can put you in touch with who do provide it. Or there's the free Companies House service via OneLogin, which I've done and my wife's done and other people have done. And I think it had a pretty ropey beginning, but is now very robust and easy to do. So the Companies House do-it-yourself method is pretty easy to do. If for a PSC, don't do it, shows. So I've had a question here saying, for a PSC director, if it shows identity verification due XXX in 2026, means nothing needed done now until hear more from Companies House. I don't quite follow that, but in as much as I understand it, well, there are two ways I understand that. One is that if it has a real date, then yes, for a PSC director, you don't need to submit that code to Companies House until that date window opens, according to the Companies House date. If, however, you're saying that you're seeing some, which we haven't seen, some Companies House data which is showing blank dates, like no date at all, then I think it's a similar kind of position as what I said earlier, is I don't really know what you should do. The regulations, if you go and read the regulations, say that you should be able to work it out, and you, in theory, could say, well, as of the 18th of November, this company's confirmation statement due date was X. So therefore, working back 14 days from that, the PSC directors, their window is that date. But I don't know how that will work in practice, because if Companies House are validating when these filings go through to say, here's a filing from a PSC director, are they then going to go and check their records to say, is the window open, yes or no? And if they're going to validate that and say the window's not open, or we don't have a window, so we're going to reject the filing, we may find that we can't send any PSC. In those cases, we can't send PSC director codes. So it's a bit of a complicated answer, and also I don't really know the answer, I'm afraid. I don't think anyone does. Okay, Greg, someone's just mentioned a comment. So they've also, in other software systems, have experienced a rejection issue when filing CSO1s and APO1s dated prior to the 18th of November 2025. So I guess that's the point I was making earlier, that if you try and file a confirmation statement that's made up to the 15th of November, so in theory it's not caught by the old UID or the new UID rules, Companies House are still rejecting it because they're saying this has come in after the 18th of November, irrespective of the made up to date. So you need the UID codes. We've had a question about corporate PSCs. That is coming in, the IDV checks, but as far as I'm aware, they're not yet. They're certainly not mandatory. I'm waiting for a bit more detail on Companies House about how and who they're going to require for the ID checks. I'm just going to go back to this slightly longer question. Yeah, so Helene, you asked a question about the 14-day time window. Yes, I think your query is correct. So if you take that example, I don't think I'm showing my screen, but if you take the example of a company that has a confirmation statement due date of the 25th of December, and it has a director who's also a PSC, and a PSC who's just a PSC. The director has to file their UID or their personal code as part of the confirmation statement, and that has to be submitted before the 25th of December, just as part under the same rules as the confirmation statement. The director, the PSC part of the director, even though they're the same person, Companies House needs a separate filing for that person in their capacity as a PSC, and that has to be submitted in a 14-day window that ends on the 25th of December. So even though the company can file its confirmation statement before that, the PSC part of that director, if that's a helpful way to think about it, can only file between the 11th and the 25th. I think that's right, 14 days. And then if the company has also a PSC who is just a PSC and their birthday is in April, then that PSC has a 14-day window to file their personal code or their UID between the 1st and the 14th of April next year. So when you're just a PSC, it's always by reference to birth month. When you're a PSC and a director, it's by reference to the confirmation statement. But as I showed you in that example right at the beginning, that point about PSCs and directors or PSCs and LLP members, Companies House saying, oh, you're the same person, so your filing window is actually by reference to the confirmation statement, is predicated on the fact that Companies House are able to connect the director profile to the PSC profile in their database. And that was a big exercise they were going to be doing before the 18th of November. But as I showed you in that example, and we've seen lots of other examples, that seems not to have happened, even though I've got the same name as a director and a PSC and the same birth month and other things like that. Somehow that they were unable to make that connection. So then I'm now in the situation of not being able to know or work out when I should be filing my code as a PSC. I should be filing it by reference to the same time, roughly the same time as I file it as a director, but that's not the case. Or at least we don't know the answer to it. Let me just see what we got here. A question about, can non-UK companies file without gov.1 login? Not sure. Do you mean like branches and foreign companies and things like that? If so, I'm not sure, because that's not something that those filings are not something that Kudocs can support, or indeed anyone can support, because there's no the XML gateway, which is the method that we communicate with Companies House, which is different to web filing. It doesn't support overseas company filings. So I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that about non-UK companies. A question about a person authorized to accept service or to represent UK establishments need to be verified too at this stage. As far as I'm aware, not, but I would imagine that it's probably coming. But it's not an area that we touch on particularly, because it's not part of the service that we can provide. So I'm afraid I don't know that answer categorically. A question about automatic PSC filings. Does the automatic PSC filing apply only to those who are a PSC, or does it include individuals who are directors and PSCs or LLPs and PLCs? The answer is it applies to all of them. So if you switch on automatic PSC filing, then the system will work out or be told by Companies House what the filing windows are, whether it's birth month or by reference to confirmation statement due date. And then once that window opens, provided the code's there and all the other parameters that I've explained are in place, then the system will automatically file those UIDs for those PSCs in whatever capacity they're a PSC. Yes, so I read a comment about the PSC who's also director, where the Companies House website says that you must file the PSC's code within a 14-day period, starting from the day after the company's confirmation statement date. Yeah, I mean, the language around what this 14-day period is you have to have, a cold flannel in a dark room and a lot of patience, but we've done that. But your comment is absolutely right. That is what the Companies House website says. That's what the ECCTA registrar regulations say. That's what the rules are saying when this 14-day window appears. It's 14 days starting a day after the confirmation statement date, or the other way of looking at it is it's 14 days back from what's called the confirmation statement due date. You end up in the same position. So that's what all the rules are saying. It's just that when we look at the data that's coming through on the public website or the public register and or through the API, Companies House are not showing those dates in all cases. because of this point that it presupposes that Companies House has been able to connect Oliver Stanley, the director, with Oliver Stanley, the PSC, and then say, oh, their dates need to align. Fair comment. Why on earth did they enforce this unnecessary 14-day window? Mad, you can't just report a code when you have it. I agree entirely, and I don't know. I'd like to meet the person who drafted the regulations. They've clearly never worked. Well, my opinion is they've never worked with Companies House or done any of this kind of work before, because I don't see how anyone could have drafted something who actually knew how the system worked. And then, yes, there's been a comment here saying, in our experience, we've seen clients that are based outside of the UK struggling to use the one Gov account to complete ID verification. In some instances, they've been advised by Companies House to complete the verification using an ACSP. So yes, again, we don't do ID verification, but anecdotally, what we're hearing from clients is that, yes, that is an issue. It's certainly an issue for people who have passports that don't have biometric chips. I think India and South Africa are the two ones that spring to mind. But otherwise, we have seen directors being able to verify themselves from other companies with other passports, and I can't really give much guidance or comfort that if you've got a director who is based in South Africa, how do they complete IDV? Or how do they complete IDV if they can't do the Companies House service? I think there are ACSPs or companies, accountants, lawyers, standalone company secretarial providers. There may be others who you can have a web call with, or they'll have a local office you can go to, and because the whole point about this IDV service, when it's provided by an ACSP, is that Companies House is saying, right, if you're going to register as an ACSP and provide this service, then you bear the risk that when you say that you've done an ID check on someone, you need to back that up. And so in these scenarios, it's down to the ACSP about what standard of checks they want to do to give themselves comfort that they're going to be compliant with the requirements from Companies House. I hope I've answered every question so far. We're at 12:42. I wasn't planning on using the whole hour. I'm very happy to use the whole hour. But does anyone have any questions? Someone's received a number of inquiries for people not in the UK who've been told to contact them as an ACSP. That's great. Amanda, maybe if you drop me an email afterwards, then it'd be great to know a bit more about who you are. Apologies if I don't recognize your name immediately. And then we can pass that information on to anyone who might be interested. But does anyone have any other questions or like to raise their hand or contribute to the discussion? Any other war stories or good news, less good news that you'd like to share in the context of, we're a weekend, so I think it's been remarkably easy considering, but that there are still a number of relatively significant issues. Filings not being able to get through, and particularly this confirmation statement issue, where there is in theory a sanction, and certainly something that doesn't look very good on a company's filing history if they're late filing their confirmation statement, where they seem to be stuck, unable to file it because of a Companies House issue. So it's not all sweetness and light. It could be a lot worse, but it does seem to be improving as the days and minutes pass. I think last call for anyone to raise a hand or ask a question. So last question about for the PSC, we're not sure about the 14-day period. We are sure what the 14-day period is. We know what it is. It's either by reference to birth month or by the confirmation statement due date. What we're not sure about is that when Companies House publishes what it believes to be that 14-day window and it doesn't match what it should be, what do we do? Do we follow the regulations or do we follow the Companies House rules? And I think it will probably come down to a practical point of, if you follow the regulations, which I'm not giving legal advice, but it never hurts to follow the law. But if you follow the regulations and you are able to file a PSC personal code or UID, even though it goes against the windows that Companies House are publishing, my guess is that would be the safer bet than only going off the dates that Companies House publishes. But that is all on the basis that when you try to file outside of what Companies House considers the window, they accept it. They might reject it. I just don't know that yet because it's only been a week. So yeah, we'll see. And we'll be putting more stuff on the website and updating as we find out more. That's it, I think. Thank you very much indeed for joining. This has been recorded. We will aim to circulate a recording and maybe a summary. If you have any questions about Kudocs, about any of this ECCTA, IDV, fun and games, please do get in touch with us, email us, go through our website. And we or someone in my team would be delighted to talk to you. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye-bye.